This is Glenn Hauser with World of Radio, 2276. World of Radio is a listener-supported public service program about communications around the world, especially shortwave. On this edition, recorded January 2nd, Afghanistan, Algeria, Canada, Dominica, Europe, Finland, Germany, Guatemala, India, Korea South, Kurdistan, Kyrgyzstan, Netherlands, North America, Oklahoma, Russia, Sudan, Sudan South, Sweden, Turkey, UK, USA, and the propagation outlook. Standard disclaimer. David Cole refers us to an article in the Wall Street Journal of December 26. You might want to look it up. It's titled, Radio Free Afghanistan, a Review of Making Airwaves, or A 20-Year Odyssey for an Independent Voice in Kabul. Here's an out-of-band frequency I had not noticed before from Algeria, Ifriqiya FM, 13885, reported by Brandon Jordan in Tennessee. It's the Wargla site, December 27th at 23:15 in French, and parallel to the other site, Bishar, on 13640. Fred Waterer in Ontario, for whom programming matters, says public media is under threat all over the world. Not just an American thing. Canadian opposition leader Pierre Poilievre, who will be probably prime minister within months or weeks, is on record as wanting to defund the CBC and turning the CBC Broadcast Centre in Toronto into affordable housing. Red meat for his supporters. It'll be interesting to see how far he goes. Deep cuts are certainly coming. Tony Pavick in Hope, BC replies, I've been a fan of CBC Radio for many years. Back in 1990, enjoyed tuning it in for As It Happens, Morningside, Vinyl Cafe, Richardson's Roundup, Basic Black, Air Farce, Mystery Project, 22 minutes and madly off in all directions. Today I only tune to CBC Radio for news, quirks and quarks, cross-country checkup, and Under the Influence. The rest is pop culture crap, cookie-cutter drive time shows, comedy shows that aren't funny, mediocre music shows. It is rare I find myself agreeing with the opinions expressed in the National Post, but an editorial by Christopher Dummett was a home run. It's titled, CBC Could Learn a Thing or Two from Vinyl Cafe. To that, Tony says, don't defund the CBC, but send more money. Give the CBC more funding so it can rise above the crap of podcast playlist and the debaters and Q that only appeal to a narrow demographic, and do things that appeal to a broader audience. Oh, and put RCI back on something, even if it's WRMI. Tony's Pop Shop Radio had a New Year's Eve special, and now some more broadcasts are coming up. The first weekend in January via shortwaveradio.de. That's Saturday at 14 UT on 6160, and Sunday at 20 on 3975. There's been a Hamdi expedition to the island of Dominica. I ran across it on 24970 USB, December 30th at 1608. The distinctive call sign is J75K, and the operators there, apparently from Italy, pronounce the island Dominica instead of Dominica, like the locals say. From somewhere in Europe, Marconi Radio International is celebrating its 39th anniversary via Manuel Mendes. It's Saturday, 4th of January at 13:30 to 17:30 on 7400 with 50 watts. Via a remote, I heard it before actually on 7399.9 and on 11390 with 25 watts. They say it's the 39th anniversary of the station, which went on the air for the first time on the 4th of January, 1986. Reports welcome to Marconi Radio International at gmail.com. The Idun's medium wave info in Denmark and AER in Spain. Bad news about the projected low-power long-wave station in Finland, Arctic 252. The operator says on his website, arcticradio.net, unfortunately, the low-power transmitter is defective and I cannot repair it. The 1 kilowatt transmitter is still not here. I'm looking for a replacement. Sorry, we'll be back on the air as soon as possible. Via Caricaglio, Texas Radio Shortwave will be featuring Radio Igloo for its early broadcasts in January on Channel 292 Germany, January 4th at 22 on 3955 to Europe, January 5th at 03 to Eastern North America and 04 to Western, both on 9670, and finally January 5th at 13 UT to Europe on 9670. Via Anatoly Klepov, Jazz AM plans a broadcast via Channel 292 Germany on Sunday, 5 January at 11 to 12 UT on 9670 and at 22 to 23 on 3955. About Radio Verdad, Guatemala attempts to return to shortwave 4055. Manuel Mendez has been in contact again with Dr. Edgar Amilcar Madrid of the station. On the 27th of December, he said, "It seems a new transmitter is arriving in Mexico. They're demanding money I don't have in order to send it, and I don't know how I'm going to do that." Manuel says, in my translation, "The truth is that everything seems to indicate, I hope it's not like this and I'm mistaken, that the same or other people who scammed the system via satellite are doing it again with this new shortwave transmitter. I've searched on Google and not found any manufacturer of shortwave transmitters in Frankfurt, Germany, as he had said, although there could be one, and asking him for money, telling him that it's in Mexico and he needs to pay more, while before he said he had everything paid. It reminds me very much of what happened before." And he said, that is, Dr. Madrid said, he has been assisted by someone in the U.S. called Ernesto Santiso. That name literally means, "I sanctify earnestly." But then I heard from Gabriel Gomez in Uruguay on December 30th, who got this from Radio Verdad. "We are still trying to get the transmitter from Europe. Thanks for your interest. When we go on the air, we'll announce it on Facebook." So we seem to be backtracking the transmitter back in Europe instead of Mexico. This may have been one time only, but perhaps it could happen again. About English from All India Radio, or Akashvani from Bharat. Scott Walker in Virginia says, on December 31st, they were doing a retrospective of 2024 in politics and sports. New Year's coverage began at 21:30 UT, mentioning many locations in India. It seemed to be live, but good reception in Virginia on 9620. Dan Robinson replies, "I've heard this on a number of occasions, English continuing after the end of their French broadcast." And Walt Salmoniv in BC says, "Excellent reception at 21:43. Not sure how long this will continue. In fact, it dropped off the air at 21:45. David Potter in Gainesville, Florida also reports, 9620, Akashvani via Bengaluru, December 31st at 21:35 with English news covering New Year's celebrations, Indian space program and other highlights, but abruptly off at 21:45. Ron Howard reports the current frequencies of clandestine from South to North Korea. Echo of Hope RVOH as heard December 30th at 11:40, 3985, 4885, 5995, 6250, good on 6350, and on 7720. And they were playing, of all things, It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas. This was on December 30th. Ron Howard also reports on 6115, National Unity Radio, from South Korea, but transmitted from Taiwan, December 30th at 12:33, with moderate to heavy North Korean jamming. They had on the air the Arim Sam's singing class, with theme music, a pop song, announcers talking about the song and singing portions of the song without musical accompaniment. Kurdistan Non, Wolfgang Büchel reports the radio war on 11530, December 28th at 07:32. Dengegel via Armenia, probably, 4 Hz below 11530, and the Turkish jammer was only 9 Hz above 11530, almost the same frequency. Imagine that. Zaharias Yangas reports on 4820 something interfering with Tibet in a Turkic language. It went off at 12:30 UT, December 21st. He provided a recording, and Mauno Rital of WRTH says it was probably Kyrgyz Radiosu reactivated on 4820. Brandon Jordan in Tennessee reports Netherlands 6129.99, Radio Europe, December 27th at 04:52 with a good signal, an eclectic mix of pop songs, and frequent IDs as from the heart of Holland on shortwave. This is Radio Europe. A very nice signal if it's only 1 kilowatt. On New Year's Eve, I was hearing about 6 different North American pirates on the 6.9 megahertz band, including on 6955 USB at 0142, Psycho Radio. That's SYCKO as they spelled it to make sure. They stayed on the air much later, still on the air in fact at 06 to 6:30, when they were making it to New Zealand. Chris Mackerel reports getting it via the club's remote there on January 1st, 0600 to 6:30. Loads and loads of pirates are reported in the NASFA fly sheet, many of them by its editor, Mark Taylor in Wisconsin. Skipping all those on the regular pirate band, I pick out these which are elsewhere, in case you want to be on the lookout for them. On 3440 USB, Wolverine Radio at 0134, December 29th. On 4185, Psycho Radio at 0429, December 23rd. On 5840 and UNID, December 24th at 0153 with a robotic voice and ho-ho-hos. And on 6225 USB, TCBS, that is Thunder Chicken Broadcast Service, presumed, at 2301, December 24th. I finally identified the mysterious music low-power station on 95.1 FM in Enid. I happen to be on the north side of the Garfield County Courthouse, where I saw signs about it, accompanying a Christmas tree made only of a string of lights. It has a big 95.1 on the sign, and it's sponsored by OG&E, the electric company, and Sudlow Engineering. No wonder it was peaking in downtown Enid. This one is not to be confused with a much larger tree a few blocks south. It's called V1, or Christ. It's totally artificial, but claims to be the tallest anywhere, without any FM. It's a promotion by Kyle Williams of KGWA and convenience gas stations. And now a movie is being made around it starring Martin Sheen, straining my respect for him. 95.1 was still on the air January 1st, but I assume will shortly be closing. And our medium wave virtual DJ radio relay on 1670 continues in Enid. From telesitinfo.ru via Telegram and RusDX, the first Intervision contest created by Russia will be held in 2025. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov spoke about this in an interview. He gave details next year, that is, this year, we will have a new opportunity to make joint efforts to develop multilateral cooperation. We are holding the International Song Contest Intervision in September. More than 25 countries have already expressed interest in participating. Of course, this must be because Russia and friends are not too welcome anymore in Eurovision. From Dr. Hans-Jörg Wiener's DX Digest via BCDX, current schedules for target broadcast towards Sudan. I'm rounding off. The time's actually maybe a minute earlier. At 0430 to 05, 7315 from France, and 11650 Madagascar. At 16 to 17, 15550 via Vatican, and 17555 France. And at 17 to 18, 11640 Madagascar, and 15550 France. They're all 250 kilowatts, and the azimuths are 335 degrees from Madagascar, 135 from France, and 148 from Vatican. It's in the Darfur Arabic dialect. And then for South Sudan, there's Radio Tamazuj, Tamazuj. It's mostly in the Arabic dialect there, but also with a bit of English. From 15 to 1530, 15550, and 17555 from Madagascar. At 3:30 to 4, 7315, and 11650, also Madagascar. The English segments are on Tuesdays and Fridays around 1517 to 1526, Wednesdays and Saturdays around 0347. Via International Vacuum, Internet, AM, FM, and shortwave, World of Radio 2276. A non-commercial service, as is our website, worldofradio.com. Our thanks this week for financial support from Chris Krug in Tulsa, who sent a contribution via PayPal to WORADIO@yahoo.com. One may also contribute via money order or check on a U.S. bank to Glenn Hauser, P.O. Box 1684, ENID, OK, 73702. SAQ, the VLF station in Sweden on 17.2 kilohertz, was on the air again on Christmas Eve with a special message. In case you don't read CW or did not actually hear it, here is what they say in plain English via medium wave news. CQ, 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 DE, SAQ, SAQ, SAQ. This is Grimeton radio station, SAQ, in a transmission using the Alex Anderson 200 kilowatt alternator from 1924 on 17.2 kilohertz. For a century, this site has served as a reminder of the power of communication to bring people closer. Let us celebrate our 100th Christmas with pride in our common history and hope for the future. Thank you all for supporting the preservation of this World Heritage Site for future generations. We hope you will join us for our continued centennial celebrations. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Signed, the World Heritage Council of Holland, Grimeton World Heritage Foundation, and the Alexander Grimeton Friendship Association. For QSL info, please read our website, alexander.n.se. DE, SAQ, SAQ, SAQ. In December, there were hints this was coming on the Voice of Turkey, but now it has happened. No more Voice of Turkey broadcasts in English on shortwave and maybe some other languages. I wrote for clarification about this and got a reply on December 29th, as did several others who inquired. This is from someone at trt.net.tr. We appreciate your concern regarding some changes at the Voice of Turkey radio going forward. We are currently undergoing a reorganization process, and we were told that TRT's all foreign broadcasts, VOT radio, multiple language websites, and podcasts will be consolidated under one roof called TRT Global, which will be launched soon. In this new structure, VOT English shortwave broadcasts will be handled by the TRT World Channel in Istanbul. We, as the Voice of Turkey English desk, will not be going on the air. We will be in charge of translating and presenting several podcast series which will be available through our newly planned online platforms. About the VOT English shortwave transmissions to be carried by TRT World, in the new term, no date has been set, we really have no idea what type of programming there will be. TRT VOT Arabic will face the same fate, but all other languages remain on shortwave, and there might be new ones in the new term. He says, I'm personally sad about all this, but I still hope that it will be turned around at some point. You never know. We remain contactable at englishdesk@trt.net.tr. All the best. Kai Ludwig in Germany replies, the whole arrangement was pretty strange for years anyway. TRT launched one new language service after another, with Farsi being the most recent. At the same time, they keep the existing editorial teams, but treat them in their PR as if they never existed. And all they are still supposed to run is linear radio. They are stripped of all other responsibilities. The websites have been handed over to the new teams. What purpose is this approach supposed to serve? Many of us were monitoring closely on December 31st. It appears the final VOT English broadcast was UT January 1st at 0400 on 6125 and 7285, as heard by Richard Langley in New Brunswick. Since then, so far, it seems they have maintained the previous English schedule more or less, but instead of their own programming, they simply cut into and out of TV audio from TRT World, which we can also see in streaming. It seems that it's not especially focused on Turkey, as the name implies, and it's not unusual to hear reports from London or America. However, on January 1st at 2300, there was no signal on 5960 nor 9610. Not sure yet whether they've actually been canceled or this was just another problem in getting on the air. The Spanish broadcast is still on, says David Potter in Florida, has heard January 2nd at 0300 on 7265 and 7280. John Collins in Birmingham says, Quoting from BBC News, Johnny Walker, ex-pirate radio DJ and previously on BBC Radio 2, has died aged 79 after a short illness. Was best known for being on Radio Caroline, the offshore pirate. Mike Terry adds this was 2 months after he had left his 58-year career because of ill health. One of the greatest, much missed. R.I.P. Johnny, says Mike Terry. Variations in World of Radio scheduling on WRMI. For a couple of months, the Sunday 2330 broadcast scheduled on 7570 was instead on 7780. Then 7570 came back on the air, and on December 29th, we happen to be on both frequencies, but I don't know whether this will continue. Also, the Tuesday broadcast at 15 UT on 9955 was replaced by something else on December 31st. Hours on air of WBCQ 6160 seem to have been reduced. On Worldwide, Alan Weiner said that the Overcomer Ministry would no longer be on that frequency this year. It's still scheduled at various times on 7490. And it seems that 5130 is still only being turned on for 1 hour during the original broadcast of Alan Weiner Worldwide, UT Saturday at 0100. Not having heard 5085 for a while, I asked George McClintock about the situation at WTWW. On January 1st, he explains, the driver solid-state amplifier went out. I replaced the final IC and it ran for only 1 hour and died. The backup amplifier lasted for only 5 minutes. I'm waiting on parts from China. I expect we will be down at least for a week. When they're back, World of Radio should appear UT Saturday at 0400 on 5085. John, the VORW in Orlando, Florida, says, it was announced in late December that WWCR's transmitter number 1, heard on 3215, 6115, and 15825, was leaving the airwaves on January 1st. Most programming has been moved to the other 3 WCR transmitters which remain, and the shutdown is confirmed on their broadcast schedule updated January 1st. Alan Rowe replies, checking the updated WWCR programming file, it's noticeable that several largely music-based programs previously heard have been removed from the schedule, such as La Voz Alegre, Last Radio Playing, and Martha Garvin's Musical Memories have all been deleted, and some have been reduced to fewer airings. The Pat Boone Show, VORW Radio International, Worldwide Country Radio, and Worship with Andy Chrisman. I checked for my favorite show, the Talking Machine Show, which is really about music, and it's still on the schedule, Saturdays at 1800 on 12160. But why would WWCR make such a drastic change? It seems that the number 1 transmitter was in better condition than some of the others, putting out squeals and spurs. I hear that WWCR profits have been plummeting, so taking 1 transmitter completely down should help the bottom line. Via Ben Cobb, this from freelance journalist Katie Thornton. Together with WNYC's On the Media, I'm finishing up a 2nd season of our Peabody-winning podcast, The Divided Dial. We'll be sharing it with you and the world in early 2025. The first episode brings us to that highly unusual radio station, WBCQ. Season 2 is the untold story of shortwave radio, the way less listened to but way farther reaching cousin of AM and FM. The medium was once painted as a utopian, international, and instantaneous mass communication tool, a sort of internet before the internet. But, like the internet, it also took a turn for the chaotic. Like AM and FM talk radio, it also went to the right, albeit for different reasons. We examine how shortwave went from a propaganda tool for governments to a propaganda tool for militia leaders and cults. We ask why some listeners and broadcasters are getting back on this dying medium, and we reveal how the trajectory of the medium and a little-known battle playing out on today's shortwaves between radio fanatics and Wall Street may serve as a parable for what happens when we cede control of our public airwaves. Keep an eye out for this next month. On a related topic, a very interesting story appeared in The Guardian via John Filiozzi. December 28th, it's titled, Trump's Threat to Defund All U.S. Public Media has NPR and PBS on the back foot. This has led to a lot of spirited discussion in the World of Radio group. One example from Bill Tilford. It's easy to forget that historically PBS on the TV side also gave us Wall Street Week, Firing Line, and the McLaughlin Group. The last one was no favor, being the ancestor of Shouting Heads. That being said, true objectivity is the impossible dream, and always has been, even under the late fairness doctrine. But there is something to be said for bringing it back as a partial deterrent to excess. Well, I point out that Firing Line is again on PBS with a much different hostess, and Wall Street Week has just been revived. So it is certainly not all left-wing stuff. And in fact, the far right sees objectivity as left. The narrowband FM auxiliary of KOVR, Channel 13, Sacramento, Stockton, California, is occasionally heard again on 26110. Terry Kruger in Florida had it December 21st at 1518 with short peaks and local morning show fluff features. Brandon Jordan in Tennessee also reports it December 27th at 1910 with a live studio transmitter link, the female hosting a weather forecast, some open mic and chatter in the background, and it went off at 1913. And I finally heard it again after more than a year. I'm too close most of the time for F2 skip on that higher frequency. I need sporadic E, but I had it December 31st at 1634 with Northern California weather here in the valley. A few years ago, there were several other links like this on the 26 megahertz band in the U.S., but as far as I know, none of them are ever reported anymore. David Joseph of the National Radio Club reports that effective January 1st, the call of 810 in San Francisco KGO changes to KSFO, while the KSFO 560 becomes KZAC. The medium wave news, WHSQ 880 New York, formerly WCBS, will air all local New York-specific programming Monday to Friday between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern, beginning January 6th. Many ESPN stations have some local programming, but 13 consecutive hours of local studio sports output is rare, if not unique. WINZ 940 Miami, 50 kilowatts in the daytime, has applied to reduce its nighttime power from 10 kilowatts to just 16 watts. That way it can be non-directional. Paul Crankshaw in Scotland reports 10:30 KCTA, Corpus Christi, Texas, closing down at midnight 32 UT without an ID. That is an hour after local sunset. It's supposedly a 50 kilowatt daytimer. He heard it for the first time on December 14th. The propagation outlook from SWPC issued December 30th. ANK indices were expected to hit 50 and 7 on December 31st, and I know the KNX did hit 8, a bit lower on January 1st, 20 and 5. Lesser peaks as follows: 12 and 4 on January 10th and 16th, 10 and 3 on January 11th and 17th to 20th. Solar flux dropping from 195 January 3rd to 160 on the 7th and 8th, and up to 230 by January 21st. Consult our website for much more info, worldofradio.com. With many thanks to all our contributors and stations. Hoping you'll hear me again next week. Glenn Hauser concluding World of Radio 2276 with a standard disclaimer.